graphing and substitution. So if I ask for a vote, how many of you would prefer to still graph? Raise your hand. I mean, be honest, if you would still prefer to graph instead of substitute. Okay, how many of you would prefer to substitute? So typically, it's about a 50-50 split by the time we hardcore learn how to do it. Because on the first day that we did substitution, everybody wanted to graph, you know. If you're ready to turn that in, Mikey, just staple it.
16 gave me 2 cents, like somebody else said.
Oh. Okay. Well, there is a third and final way to solve a system of equations using algebra. It's not substitution, it's called elimination. What does it mean to eliminate something?
Get rid of it.
To get rid of it. So how could I get rid of 2x minus 2x? Good job, Maria. That's why we scored a 9.2 cut on Kirby. How can I get rid of a negative 3y?
You add 3y.
Add positive 3y. So we are going to use opposites today to eliminate things. I can help you with that. Okay, here are your notes in 3-5. So big old number 5 at the top. The copier was out of staples. That's why it looks the way it does. But if you accidentally tug too hard, you can re-staple it. The stapleless staples. It's better for the environment. Use some sick. Okay.
It was worse than that.
Is that actually is it hard or not?
Her hair looks pretty out here. I'll give you this, but you sure don't have to write anything down, honey.
By the way, I'm gonna record this.
Okay. Do you need to know what standards I'm teaching?
Yeah, but you can tell me that.
I'll tell
Or you can just write them on the board and then I can take a picture of them later.
I did.
Who else didn't get one of these? Raise your hand up, Leslie, if you raise your hand high. So Olivia is my senior. She's like my teacher's assistant in this class. Oh, Lord. Okay. We are right here. We are 8, which is 8th grade.
I'm just gonna.
EE, which is expressions and equations. 8. And we are doing A, B, and C. Do you need to type that in or not?
Got it.
Okay. Now. All right.
This is gonna be easy.
It is easy.
Can I go to do it?
You already.
Exactly, that's what I'm gonna do.
Olivia, this is talking about.
You know what?
What is that?
Teach that.
Okay. Today's objective. Mr. Elijah, you're up front. Read that for us, baby. Today's objective.
Solving systems of equations by using the method of elimination.
Elimination. If you have a highlighter or something, you might want to take that out and use it some today. Yeah, you can underline. That's fine too. So let's review. Carly, identify the opposite. What's the opposite, Carly, of 8?
Negative 8?
Yes, ma'am. What is the opposite, Mr. Bash, of negative 10? What is the opposite of y, Miss Olivia?
Negative 1.
Negative y. Good job. You're the first student today that said that. You know what everybody else has said when I said the opposite of y? X.
What is?
And I'm like, that's not going to cancel. Opposites have to eliminate or cancel. What's the opposite of 3x? What's the opposite of negative 34a? Okay, so you may be asking, why am I doing this? Well, how do we know when two terms are opposites? Okay, when one's a positive and one's a negative. But what will happen when I add them together?
Zero.
0. So instead of like using little boy terms like they'll cancel out, or they add up to be zero. Let's sound fancy on our notes and say they will have a sum of zero. So how do we know when two terms are opposites? They will have a sum of zero. Now this is going to be very important in solving a system of equations using elimination. Layla, will you read the first sentence that's in this box? We add, very good girl, we add the two equations in the system together, and our goal is to, what? Eliminate one of the variables. Okay, there are all these steps that we'll read as we go along. Okay, step number 1. Miss Kylie Clark, will you read step number 1? Do you see how your like terms are already lined up? Your X is here, your Y is here, and your what here? What are those numbers called? Without a variable. Numbers without a variable. There. Bull hockey. What are numbers without a variable? Good try. It does start with a C. Constants. Okay, so we have our X's lined up, our Y's, and our constants. So we are going to just add. Everybody add straight down. What's X plus 5X? What's negative 2Y plus 2Y? Cancel those out. That's the goal, to eliminate something.
If it's 0Y, that equals 1.
And then what's negative 19? Yeah. What's negative 19 plus 1? And then I just solve this system like normal. Divide by 6, divide by 6. What does X equal?
Negative 3.
Okay. So step number 2 was to add them. Step number 3. Will you read step 3 for me, Maddox?
Okay. Substitute your answer into one of the original equations and solve for the other variable.
Okay. Highlight or underline the word original. One of the original equations. Do you want to plug X in for the top or for the bottom?
Top.
Okay. So then instead of writing X, what am I going to write?
Negative 3 minus.
Negative 3 minus 2Y equals negative 19. So what will I do to both sides?
Add 3.
Let's do that. Let's add 3. What is negative 19 plus 3?
Negative 16.
Negative 16. What will I divide both sides by?
No.
So this is just like
Yeah.
substitution now,
It'll be 8.
and it will be 8. So what does that mean that the ordered pair is where my two lines intersect?
Negative 3, 8. This is easier than before. Why don't we do this first?
Okay, this is easier as long as your variables are lined up. But if your variables are not lined up, substitution might be easier. And we'll look at different scenarios and see. So on Desmos,
I'm not gonna do this.
look at there. I already typed those in. That's where they cross. So we're literally talking about where the two lines cross. Okay, go on and turn it over, and let's look at number 1, and then I'll turn the loose on number 2.
What do we negative 36?
Negative 12, negative 24, yes. Okay, step number 1, line up your variables. Well, on our guided notes today, they're already lined up. The X's, the Y's, and the what? What's just a plain old Jane old number called? A constant, okay. So tell me, what eliminates? What cancels itself out? Okay, so let's go ahead and cancel those. And now we'll just add straight up and down. But look at what I'm adding. It's a negative 2y plus 8y. There's 6y. There's the equals. What's negative 12 and negative 24 add up to be? Negative 36. Divide everything by 6. And your y coordinate.
Done. Is that right?
Step number 3. Step number 3. Bash, will you read step number 3?
Substitute your answer into one of the original equations and solve for the answer.
So I don't care if you plug -6 in here or here. Do you wanna plug it in for the top or the bottom? Top, okay, that's fine. So I will write -4x minus 2, and instead of writing y, what will I write?
-6.
I will write -6.
Why don't you get rid of the 4?
Because you don't get rid of it until you do the equation, because you add 4 each side.
So what we're doing right now is just plugging in -6 for y into this original equation. And you could have used either one you wanted. What does this equal? Negative what? Okay, so let's solve this equation. -4x. What is -2 times -6? Positive 12 equals -12. Two-step equation. What do I do to both sides?
Add 4x.
No, I'll leave that for x.
Minus 12. So it'll be 0.
So, no,
Or, no.
if it were opposite, it would be 0, 1, -1, positive. You're fine.
Hold
What's
it.
-12 minus 12 more?
So it'll be +3.
Positive 24.
It's -12 minus 12 more, so
It'll be
it's
-24.
-24.
I did this wrong. Okay.
And what's x equal? How many times will 4 go into 24? 6. So as an ordered pair, my ordered pair where they will cross, and in just a minute I'll get Olivia to check it, would be what? Now your x goes first. 6, comma, -6. That's where your two lines will intersect. Olivia, you can go ahead, system.desmos.com. And while she's typing that in to check your work, if you want to start on the second one, you can.
This way.
You always add, so it's the addition method.
No, but if it's 3x.
Uh-huh. And then what's negative, that cancels, equals. No, you add 11 and 19 together. There you go. So look at what Olivia's got going on the board. I don't want you to think these numbers are just some voodoo numbers I'm pulling from the sky. This is still Pam's Pizza, and it's still Pete's Pizza, and it's still where they cross. You know, nothing's changed from a month ago. We're still talking about the solution of the systems of equations and where two lines cross. Okay, you should be well underway with number 2, canceling out those y's. By the way, midterms are tomorrow. So during your 7th period class, that teacher will give you your midterm for the third 9 weeks. Is that not bizarre that we are to that point?
That is so
Divided by -1. Divided by -1.
Is this right?
Plug your X and Y back in.
1 divided by -1 is negative. You're fine.
Yeah, I don't think so. Okay.
Olivia, will you show me that number 2, please? I'm sorry. Something over there sounds like it's about to take off. My flowers never flag.
Plastic.
Did anybody bring back your?
I don't know what college is put.
I would love to put it in my envelope to mail out. What other?
I don't know what to put for the colleges.
Do some plus. If you did, just bring it
What
up.
are
Go
they?
ahead and KU.
Olivia, do you feel comfortable working this delineation problem out?
What are they?
Can we get fractions?
No, you should not. You should get integers. Whichever way, they take them out.
Okay. I want to think of it this way, and just add straight down. So, x plus 2x.
All those in Kentucky.
Negative y plus y.
Shut up.
Negative.
I didn't put power.
0, 1,
Negative
why?
y.
No, why?
Negative See what strange things? It's a negative y and a positive y. They cancel.
Oh, is that a negative one or a positive?
Swim.
Did I get this right?
Those cancel.
Yep.
That equal 11 plus 19. Now what do we do?
Divide 3 by both
Well,
sides. It's 10. 3 divided by 3 is 10.
Good.
You get
We're gonna
9
get
minutes.
here.
Yes.
Okay.
Does anyone have questions about how we got here?
How did I get the 10?
Okay. So now choose an equation. I'm filling this off. So it is x.
Well, shut up. Get there.
Yeah.
Don't see.
You gotta subtract.
Now negative y equals 1.
So it'd be -1, right?
I like how she handles things with a squeak.
It's more fun.
It is. Good job, Lee.
Now someone put that in order to pair for me.
-10, -1.
Good job, Ash.
And just for time purposes, we won't Desmos it. Are you on the next one and they're not canceling? Is that your problem, Riley? Are you on the next one and they're not canceling?
No, I just need help.
Okay, number 2 is the last one on here. We're getting ready to do it, Riley, where it's easy. When I say that, I mean, when you start adding, your variables cancel. One of them does. Well, when you look at number 3, don't you dare think that -6x cancels with a -6x, because it doesn't. That's a -12x, and in the beginning of this lesson, you said the opposite of a -6x was a positive 6x. So I'm going to have to do something on one of these equations to turn one of these 6x's to a positive. Well, I can't just say, you're a positive. I have to do something to that equation mathematically. Well, that will give you a 0. What could I multiply or this equation by, or this term, to make it a positive 6? -6x times what gives you a positive 6x?
1.
-1.
-1. If I multiply everything in either of the equations by -1, and then multiply every single thing in that equation by that, I've technically not really changed the equation. I've just kind of put it in a Halloween costume. What is -1 times -6? Now it's 6x, and it will eliminate.
6x plus
And a -1 times this positive is a -6y. And a -1 times this 6 is a what? A -6. And I don't do diddly to the bottom equation, I just bring it over the way it was. And then they eliminate. Yes. So now your 6x and your -6x do eliminate. And I'll give you a minute to work on that.
But we still cancel out, right? The 6 is.
The 6x and the -6x do eliminate. And then you just add.
The lighting just is not.
I don't know why.
I know, I struggle with it. Do what, Kaden?
Why equals 6, right?
That's what I want.
There you go, well, but it still has the,
Yeah.
so those eliminate.
Leave it
What is
in.
-6y? That helped it, Olivia. What's -6y plus 3y? Thank you, Elijah. And what's -6 and a -12?
-18.
-18. We're gonna divide everything by -3,
It'll be 6.
and y is 6.
Wow.
So then step 3 is the same as it was for substitution. Plug it back into one of the original equations. Top or bottom, which one you want to?
Bottom.
I didn't talk.
Okay, I heard bottom, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna do the top just to be different. Negative 6x plus 6, and instead of writing y, I'm gonna write 6. I'm just plugging that in.
How do you not have one of the new Ladybug cameras?
I want one.
I've never seen one like, I haven't seen one like,
This is the old school.
I haven't seen one like this in 2 or 3 years.
What do the new ones look like?
They're green.
They're green?
I
Ladybugs
need,
are green.
so I need to ask Mr. Corey for a green ladybug.
But they.
And Ms. Johnson
There would
has
not
one
be a ladybug.
specifically for ours that's blue.
That'd be like
It'd be like
a
grass.
mouse.
Yes, sir.
That's
Huh.
what you can.
I was about to say, if you're about to say is this wrong, I'm gonna kill you.
No, it'd be a man bun.
I have a feeling we're going to address that, and we're not there yet, so. hang
You
on.
address it to me.
We're gonna address it as a whole. That way we don't have to address it individually to each
I
person.
like it if your variables are lined up, but if you just have something that says like
I
X
still like
equals-
this much better. I don't understand stuff.
X equals 5, yeah.
I'm not negative.
It's a negative divided by a negative.
Oh, I didn't know.
The positive.
Like, every order
That's
pair
hard.
is
Yeah.
opposite.
And y'all still think elimination's easier.
But now elimination's only easier if they're both written out like in standard form and lined up. We're gonna talk about when and why you might use graphing. Why would you do substitution? Did you figure out why you
Why would we do this in the first place?
did? Negative 12 and negative 18 is negative 30.
If it's lined up like number 1 was, it this would be a
I'm
perfect
talking
color.
about like.
In
this
line.
graph.
Okay,
Yeah.
Olivia, will you show me number 4? Can somebody tell me why this one's just a little bit more challenging?
Best way.
Listen to Maddie. Listen to Maddie. Maddie, go Maddie.
You have to multiply the different equations by different numbers.
I should have tried. I'm scared.
You didn't say.
Oh no, I failed the test.
I didn't see.
I was trying to think of real world.
Exactly, real world.
Oh no. Don't talk to me. Okay. Oh Lord, is everybody okay back there? So, I want you to go back in time to 4th grade, when your teacher taught you about multiples and factors. Does anybody remember trying to find the least common multiple of numbers and least common denominators when you add fractions?
I'm not gonna
So,
get a whole
yes. So here's what I'm gonna ask. You've got a 5x and a 3x. If I start listing multiples of 5, and I start listing multiples of 3, what's the first one they have in common? Everybody agree it's 15?
Yes.
So I need one of my equations to be a 15, and I need one of my equations, are you on this one, brother?
Yes.
One of these equations to be like 15, and the other one to be what to eliminate? Negative 15. So Mr. Ian, can you tell me what I could multiply my equations by to get a 15 and a negative 15? Which one do I need to multiply by 5, top or bottom? Okay, perfect. That will give me a 15. So Ian, this one needs to be a negative 15 and a negative 3. And that didn't have to be what Ian said. Ian could have done the top by 3 and the bottom by negative 5. So you don't have to do it this way, but we're just, you know. Go ahead and multiply. If there's not a little yellow calculator on your desk, snatch one. Now, Sir Bob.
Does it mean this?
So what did you, I don't see what you multiplied things by. What'd you multiply this by? So you multiplied 3, so 15, 12, negative 90, and you multiplied that
It was
by
90.
negative 5, right? It should have been negative 5, because this is, adds up to be 30,
That'd be positive.
and that would be positive.
Now we cancel out.
So does does 50 something y equals 0? So you can keep solving that.
Well,
Well, you can still do 5 times 3 and 5 times 4. Believe me, I'm making you do this. At least do the multiplying and let them make sure they have the right equations.
33 1, right? I know you would add.
You just divide and you get 0. Y is 0.
I got 57 Y.
Zero. No, if your y's cancel, that's when it's gonna be a special case, but just divide everything by 1 and it's just 0. No. 57 y equals 0.
I mean, hold it on.
So 0 divided by 57.
Zero. So y is 0.
No,
So then plug 0 back in.
I'm just gonna wait, because I'll get trapped.
Okay, what's negative 30 times negative 30?
Negative 90, but 90. I just wrote like this.
Okay.
What do you got?
Now we need to do,
You're like a little teacher, aren't you?
Right.
5 times negative 9 is negative 45. I'm not the best in my department. I know what I'm doing. And then 5
Negative
times,
90.
The original, go back to the original.
So here, when I multiply this by negative 6.
okay.
Negative
Negative positive 2.
What?
You need it to cancel with this, right? What's the opposite of a negative 6?
Change it.
You need this to be a positive 6, so just multiply everything by 2.
I know, cancel that out, cancel.
Which equals 0,
Mhm.
so y equals 0.
0 on this side, and then 2 times minus 2, and equals 16. And that's no
I
solution.
helped her.
And
So that's what I'm doing wrong. Now it's no longer.
Okay, look at where Olivia is at this point. A lot of you got here and thought, no solution, 57 don't equal 0 or whatever. But you still have a y. You do have an answer. Your variables did not go by y. No, it ain't.
It's infinite.
what's 0 divided by negative 57?
Number 0. 0. Because you can't stop that.
Yes, you
Wow.
can.
Number 6.
0 divided by anything.
Zero.
No, this one's infinite solution.
I don't know how you got that.
You multiplied everything by 2, but it should have been by negative 2. And
Why does it have to be
then,
negative 2?
because you need a negative 16 to cancel with a positive 16, and the only way to make that a positive 16 is to multiply by negative 2. So when you multiply everything by negative 2, that ends up being a negative 12, and then that doesn't cancel. Yes. Good job.
Are we just gonna like have a lot? Not know where we're gonna go?
Look.
We're not gonna know where we're going. I did, I don't know. We're just gonna know how.
Guys, even if you finish this one, pay attention.
Negative 9 times 0.
So this is just.
Negative 9 times 0 is 0. Oh.
Now what do I do?
Divide the other side. X equals 0 is negative 6.
It's negative 6.
I already said that.
Why didn't you?
I said it.
You get it, girl.
No,
I'm gonna
compares
change
negative 6
Olivia
zero.
from wanting to be like, do a job where she's gonna make about 10 times as much as me. I'm gonna persuade her to be a teacher. You're a good one, girl.
Do you think you wrote the 6 big enough
It's not
to
math.
That's
And
true.
then-
I know, she is going to utilize the math that she uses every day, which is what I do every day.
Olivia,
What?
You think your lecture six big enough?
What?
You think your birthday next
Left.
six big?
Yes, I did.
We're gonna scribble on this word together.
I actually think it should be
We're gonna
bigger.
struggle on this, or
And the rules would be like,
why bigger?
We're gonna-